Lesson 1-5, Concept 2, Solving Equations with Fractions. So when you're solving an equation with fractions, most of the steps are going to be the same as if you were solving them with integers or whole numbers. One of the things you have to keep in mind is that if you're adding or subtracting fractions, you are going to need to find that common denominator before you can combine them. All right. So if we look at our first example, we are subtracting a fraction from our variable. So the first step is going to be to use the inverse operation of addition to move it over. You can do this one of two ways. You can either move it over, and I'll show you what that looks like first, or you can convert it to a common denominator and then move it. Either way is fine, just as long as you remember to do the conversion. So if I'm going to add it first, I'm going to add 2/6 to both sides, and then rewrite with my variable equals 5/12 plus 2/6. And now at this point I'm going to have to convert it. I know that 6 times 2 equals 12, and 12 is going to be my least common denominator. So I multiply this by 2/2, and that gives me 4/12. And then 4/12 plus 5/12 is going to be 9/12. And I'm going to need to make sure that that is simplified. So I'm going to look at it. It looks to me like 9 is or 3 is a factor of 9, and 3 is a factor of 12. So I'm going to divide by 3. Divide by 3. 9 divided by 3 is 3. 12 divided by 3 is 4. And that is my simplified fraction. So that's going to be my answer. Now, if I am doing a division or a multiplication problem, so I have a fraction multiplied by my variable, I would normally be using division. All right, and I'm going to show you what that looks like. But there is also a trick to make it a little bit easier. So I have 3/4 times v. So I'm going to change that into 3/4 divided by 3/4 times v equals 5/12 divided by 3/4. And this is one of the most common areas for students to make mistakes. If you mix up the order for where you put your fraction, so if you put this 3/4 in front of the 5/12, your answer is going to be different, right? Because you're going to keep the first fraction, change the sign, and flip the second fraction. And in class and in lesson number 3, we looked at how that changes the result. So make sure that you are putting your new fraction behind the first fraction. That one has to come second. It comes after the division symbol. Okay, and then I am going to, because I'm dividing fractions, I am probably going to run out of room actually to write this, but maybe not. I'm going to keep 3/4, change my sign, flip it to 4/3 times v, keep my first one, change my sign, flip 3 and 3, 4 and 4 cancel, so I'm left with v equals, and then I'm going to multiply straight across, 5 times 4, or if I want to cross cancel first, I can do that. That way I won't have to simplify afterwards. 4 and 12 are both divisible by 4. So I'm going to divide by 4 there and get 1. Divide by 4 there and get 3. and then multiply straight across. I get 5 times 1 over 3 times 3 is 9. Oops, got into my bottom question. So you can see that there are some steps when you're multiplying fractions. It takes a little while. The trick that we learned in lesson 3 is that instead of dividing and then flipping all of our fractions, we can simply multiply by the reciprocal, right? So we can skip that whole step where we're writing out our division and making sure we have the correct order, because if we are multiplying by the reciprocal from the start, then the order doesn't matter, right? So I know that I can multiply by the reciprocal, so if I rewrite this, I can write this as 4 thirds times 3 fourths times v. And then, even if I get the order wrong, it doesn't matter. I can do 4 thirds times 5 twelfths, and it'll still work out the same, right? 4 and 4 cancel, 3 and 3 cancel. I'm left with v equals, I'm still going to do my cross cancel here, and v is going to equal 5 times 1, or 5, over 3 times 3, 9. And you can see I saved myself a fair amount of steps by multiplying by the reciprocal rather than dividing by the fraction. All right,